Renowned NBA expert says Jazz are one of the 5 teams that will overachieve this year. Do you buy it? Next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. And to the everydayers, you're the best. Thank you so much for being a part of Locked On and making us the #1 sports network, sports podcast network. Thank you very much. Maybe we'll be the #1 sports network one day. Be a big jump, but you never know. All right. Thurl Bailey, which should make all of you smile, joining us coming up here in a minute. He'll run through things he's most excited about. He's going to talk to us a lot about development of players because Thurl has been through it, what we should expect out of Taylor Hendricks, Ace Bailey, what the developmental stages are for like a Keyonte George. Thurl's done it. So we're going to talk to Thurl about that largely today in the program, and then he'll join us again tomorrow. But we're starting with John Hollinger, who I really think is a gift to the NBA media at this point, having had the experience he's had in the front office, plus his great numbers background. And every year he does his preseason 5 teams that will overachieve. It's a pretty hard thing to do, actually, when you think there's only 30 teams. And last year he did not have a good 23-24, he writes, but last year his 5 teams were Cleveland, Detroit, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, and Phoenix. Cleveland, Atlanta, OKC topped their number by 10. Detroit and Cleveland topped their number by 15. And Phoenix was a disaster. So this year, his 5 teams that are going to top their number, and I'll give you a quick summation, is the Thunder, whose number is 62.5, but his quick thesis on that would be they have the 13 players back on their depth chart, best differential of all time last year. They can pick their number. The Clippers, who are at 48.5, and basically their depth is incredible with our offseason moves. Their bench is Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Derek Jones, and Brook Lopez. They have a starting team, and they won 50 last year with Kawhi playing just 37 games. They added Bradley Beal instead of Norman Powell. They added Chris Paul as a backup, and they added John Collins in place of a non-power forward. He has the Warriors at 45.5. His thesis there is basically the Warriors went 30-11 after acquiring Jimmy Butler. That's half a season. They should be fine. He has the Bulls, who are at 32.5. In the last 3 seasons, they won 39, 39, and 40. And he basically points out that 13 of their 15 players are above replacement level. Interestingly, the 15th is the rookie, and the other is Nikola Vucevic, is below replacement level. Just worth a thought there. And then he has the Jazz at 18.5 as our over-under. It's one of the lowest over-unders in the history of the NBA. In fact, I believe it's the lowest over-under number since the process in the Philadelphia 76ers. Only 9 teams here's John's point of why the Jazz will exceed their 18.5. A few different reasons. One, only 9 teams in the last decade have finished the season with 18 or fewer wins. We did it last year at 17. None of them had a healthy all-star on their roster for the entire season, and that's where he's talking about Lauri Markkanen, who looks so good this year in Eurobasket. His other point is really interesting. As much as we're looking at the Jazz as though they lost John Collins, they lost Collin Sexton, and they moved on from some veteran players that were pretty good players, and now the Jazz don't have them anymore, is John Hollinger's point is among the players with 1,000 minutes last year, Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier were 2 of the 4 worst players in the league by BPM, his number on that. And he just is like, you can't have numbers. You won't have players who play that badly again. It's kind of an interesting concept. Hadn't really thought about it that way. That basically, one, Isaiah and Cody will both be better, certainly. And if they're not, you got other guys that probably will be. The other one he points out that's interesting is he doesn't deny the fact that the Jazz are stuck as they need to ensure themselves one of the 4 worst records in the NBA and ensure themselves a top 8 pick so it doesn't go to the Thunder. He openly talks about that. But he points out that his projected 5th worst team in the NBA this year is a 30-win team. Now, I'm not sure that will happen as the year goes on, but it's an interesting concept that we suddenly have moved. One of the problems I thought the Jazz had last year is that so many teams were tanking. And then you added New Orleans into the mix as well. So to win, to be in the bottom 4, which is probably what we need to do, you could probably be in the high 20s, is his point, not 18, and still get that done. I question that a tiny bit. His final point, which is pretty good, is that as long as you have Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, you're gonna be okay. I mean, the fact is that last year when Keyonte George, Collin, Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler on the floor, so Keyonte with Collin, Lauri, John Collins, and Walker Kessler, we were plus 9.2. Our offense was in the 79th percentile. Our defense was in the 34th percentile. We were plus 9.2. Walker and Lauri on the floor together were only minus 4.5. And they played with all sorts of weird combinations. And if you start to add in that, like, we have, I think, again, I'm more bullish on Keyonte than some others. I think Keyonte will start, might be wrong, but if Keyonte starts, Keyonte, Walker, and Lauri last year were only minus 2.2 together in 1,000 possessions. That's a lot. Huge turnover problem. Turned it over 18% of the time, only forced turnovers 9% of the time. But the offense was in the 77th percentile. Lauri, Walker, and Keyonte all together were pretty good. So to back up Hollinger's point, I would put Keyonte in that mix too. We have 3 players that are pretty good. Now, you don't have John Collins, and you don't have, we start to siphon off some of the veterans if John Collins is not on the floor and Colin Sexton's not on the floor, and you're just playing young guys around it. Well, that negative 2.2 will start to slide and get into a much, less good number. Because that's part of the reason why those lineups are good, is because John Collins and Colin Sexton know how to play. They're veterans. They play the game right. And you put Walker and Keyonte around them, and it's a better experience for them. But there's a track record that shows with Lauri, Walker, and Keyonte, we're going to be fairly decent. We'll see, frankly. I mean, the numbers without John Collins and Colin Sexton get ugly. I think it's like minus 13 or something. So I'm not being ignorant to say that they're going to suddenly try to compete, but Hollinger's belief pattern is interesting. One, I think, is most interesting is just you've got Lauri Markkanen, and the other teams that have been that bad in the history of the game just haven't had that. We did last year, but he hardly played. The second one is just the performance jump from some of the guys who had a bad year last year. And number 3 is that you may not need them to be that poor. Pretty interesting. Thurl Bailey gives us an insight on what it is to develop in the NBA and stuns me along the way as well with some interesting insight because he's thorough and I love him. And it's next on Locked on Jazz. Monday edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Chevy. Located in Woods Cross, also in Logan, the Chevy truck is Americana. It is the Silverado and the Colorado. Murdochs are Utah, plus 90 years in the state, giving us everything they have in the no regrets experience, plus the great lineup all the way from the electric Volt to the now EV trucks. Chevy's got it rolling for you. So if you are looking for a truck for this winter, it's a good time of year to buy a truck, by the way. It is, let's get it going over at Murdoch Chevy. We can set you up with the Locked On VIP meeting that you deserve. by being a Locked On Everydayer. So email me at dlock09@gmail.com, and we'll set you up over in Woods Cross. Or if you're up in Logan, just let me know which location, and we will get you that VIP experience you deserve, and we'll get you in a Chevy truck, or it's the Blazer, the Trailblazer, or the Equinox, or it's the Utah County Assault Vehicles, the Tahoe, and the Suburban that makes Chevy great. All at Murdoch Chevy in Woods Cross, also in Logan. Today's show is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Tasty caffeine in 17 different bold flavors. That's right. The 5 Hour Energy shots deliver in just 2-ounce shots. The packs of caffeine or premium 12-ounce coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar, which means 0 crashes. They're portable, big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get the boost you need. Pick your favorite flavor, get it sent to you by going to 5hourenergy.com or go to Amazon today. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love and be bold. Try something new in store. That's 5hourenergy.com or go to Amazon today. 17 bold flavors waiting. And today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money, time for you to get control of your finances, find out where you're saving, see what you can do next, get a full picture of what's going on without leaving money on the table, feel in total control with this all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you're putting organizing your if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart characterizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Take advantage of Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA if your browser is in your browser. MonarchMoney.com, LOCKEDONNBA. That's 50% off your first year at MonarchMoney.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNBA. He looks like he's in like a 3rd grade classroom right now. He's actually in the back of some hotel in New Jersey somewhere. He's Thurl Bailey. He has got one of the great gifts of the world that the minute you see him, you smile. And then 5 minutes later, you actually feel better because you're around him. I miss you. I cannot wait to be around you and feel your juice, dude. You are the best. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's coming up. It's about that time.
Did you get inspired by the NBA broadcast meetings?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of that, it gets us closer to the season. You get to be around people you're going to see, especially when you travel on the road. Your name's been brought up a lot here in good ways, by the way, people that we see when we travel. So it's good. It's good to kind of see those faces and get a little bit of insight. So, from referees to new technology, Adam Silver. So a lot of good things, a lot of things we already knew, but some good innovation coming, and just some great peers to be able to talk to Mike Breen, one of the best in the business. So yeah, it's been fun. All
right. You have a very unique perspective on this season. Ron Boone does too, but it was so long ago for that 79-year-old that maybe your perspective. He's 79.
I know.
All right. So we have players. We have really 9 players that are developing that we're going to be watching develop. Walker is in the final stage of development, really, like year 4. Like you've kind of gone through it. Now you're figuring it out. Lauri, I'm sure, is still getting better, but not developing, if you understand the difference I have. We have Keyonte and Bryce in year 3. We really have Taylor in year 2, 3 asterisk. We have Isaiah, Kyle, and Cody in year 2, and we've got the rookies. Can you kind of walk me through, in your mind, what a player development process is? What's fair to ask at each stage? What's your thoughts on what the different stages we see our players developing in this season?
Well, I think I would start, David, with our definitions of development, right? Because, heck, I was still developing them in my 6th, 7th year. There were certain things that, obviously weren't going to change that much. But the developmental piece, I think, is always a continuous piece, if not physically, then mentally and psychologically, right? I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I think the process now, as Booner probably talked to you about when we played, is we were older, right? We had probably more life experiences. We were, somewhat maybe more mature for that level, although there was always a transitional period coming from college to the next level. Always is. Even for the greatest of players, is a transitional adjustment. Depends on what your learning curve is. But I think when you look at our team, and I understand your perspective of what that development is after that 3-year period, right? You should have some type of understanding of the expectations, your body, the league, night after night, the games, the practices, and even the travel, if you will. And so I think it's different a lot of times for each player as well, and how quickly they capture things. You talked about Walker Kessler, right? Came in, had a really good rookie season to most standards, and then dropped off that sophomore year and had some struggles. They had a few injuries at the end, which also is a factor. But I think for him, it was more of the psychological, the mental piece, right? How can I come back and establish myself after such a good year and try to be better? And you put a lot of pressure on yourself. So there's a lot of things that go into that developmental part. But if we're just talking about the league, the play, and the grind, yeah, I think when you look at a player like Kyle Filipowski and his development and what we're going to see this year versus last year, there was a part in the season where at the beginning where, we use the phrase deer in the headlight in some cases with rookies. I thought he went through some of that, trying to put a lot of pressure on himself, but he also came in with the expectation that, I thought I was going to go higher in the draft. I got a lot to prove, but you come in and you drop all that and you become a sponge. You listen to the coaches, you change your jump shot, right? You put more muscle on. So it's a different process for each player. So it's not a uniform deal. I mean, there's some things they're going to go through together that obviously are similar, but it really is based on personality, position, your mental strength, and what the expectations are for the coaches that sit you down and say, this is what you need to do to not just make it here, but to stay here at this level.
I actually almost think I think you bring up a great point, because I was actually trying to run through like physical versus mental examples. I'm actually only coming up with mental. Like it's a real, so like, let's talk about Kyle for a second. I haven't talked about this on the air ever before. It sounds so stupid, but I actually think it's true. In the first 35 games of the year, every time he hit, he went down to the ground. Every time he got hit, he went to the ground. Every single time. And then at about the 35th game, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to go down on the ground when I get hit anymore. Like, I actually truly think that is, and I actually think probably from a mental standpoint, it was like back to the draft day didn't go his way and things weren't going his way and he wasn't getting calls. And at some point Keyonte, I'm super bullish on Keontae's year this year. I actually think he's going to have a really good year. He's really talented. I don't like what I've seen the last 2 years. I'm not going to lie about that. Like, he shot a bad percentage, like all my numbers, like I got it. You know what I really like? He looked me in the eye last year and he talked to me. He grew up. He was older. He went through a natural development stage from a 19 to a 20 to 21-year-old. I think he's developing. He stayed here this summer. He's doing all the things he's supposed to do, and he's wildly talented. They're all wildly talented. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. So, I think Taylor Hendricks, I talked to Bowler about this. Like, you and Bowler have an interesting perspective on Taylor Hendricks, because you actually talked to him more than anyone else last year, because he was on your show like 3 times and you talked to him. But I don't think he could have done that interview a year ago. Like, you wouldn't have wanted to have him on TV a year ago. So those 3 things, whether it's literally fighting back mentally, like Kyle Filipowski, whether it's, I'll share the conversation I had with Keyonte. Like, I literally walked up to Keyonte last year and said to him, hey, I got to tell you what, you're the age of my kid. Somebody can think this is presumptuous and arrogant, whatever of me. This is just who I am. I'll own it. But I literally said to him, like, hey, you have a kid. My daughter is your age. And I'm super impressed by you as a dad and how much you're like looking people in the eye, talking to them, communicating. And I think it's really neat. I don't know what you think of that, but I just want to tell you. And he literally said back to me, thanks. I'm trying. It's hard. I can't ever tell if people notice. I thought it was a cool moment. Like, to me, it also says to me just kind of like, these guys are trying. And I do wonder if it's just more mental than physical for most of this. Like Walker's was completely mental.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always, because we're talking about basketball, there's always a physical aspect in that too, right? I mean, there's always a part of you that wants to be ready and prepared, in shape, ready to go through the grind, the battle. So that's important, but it's connected obviously to the mental side of your drive and what you want to achieve. And speaking of Keyonte, I think you're right. This is an important year, but there's certain things that have to happen to cause you to understand that you have to change, right? Your environment, your ability to listen and not take it as a negative, to take it as constructive, to take it as these guys are trying to help you become the best player you can. And what you get sometimes with a young player like Keyonte, like Filipowski, you talked about him hitting I don't know how many times he hit the floor in college. I would think not very many. But he did a lot.
No, you're right. You're like,
okay.
You're 100% right. Well, he was also the number one recruit in the country. Like, and he was at Duke. Like, that kid doesn't get touched. People are in awe of that kid. Nobody was in awe of him when he got to the NBA.
That is my point right there. And so we're living in an era of kids who have had that for so long. They were the best. And then they get to the NBA level and they're not the best anymore. There's something that you've got to check at the front door. And so I was proud of Keyonte when it took him a while. It didn't happen right away. It was when he was sent to the bench. He's first, second guy off the bench. And I know that messed with him. And to be able to travel and watch that, to watch his mannerisms, to watch him and shoot around, to watch him, and maybe I won't go so far as to say pout, but yeah, maybe a little bit of that, because there were times I went through it as a rookie or as a second-year player. So, but I watched him come out of that. I watched him embrace it, because you have a choice, right? You can embrace it or not. And I think he did. And some of the things I saw from his rookie season to last year, the improvement of his attitude, the improvement of him being vocal, and being open to learning how to be a point guard. And then when another point guard comes in that's better at being a point guard than you are, you accepting whatever that role is for you. And so I love the maturity of these guys, especially guys like Keyonte, Kyle. And that's what me as a former player, my perspective is. I look for those little things. And the game is the game, obviously, and the stats are the stats. But I can see when you're approaching the game in a different way than you usually are, good or bad. I can see how you prepare. I can see what happens when the team's winning and celebrating. And maybe you're not as much into that. I've been there. I've sat next to guys who have been there and done that. So
your speaker just changed, by the way. I don't know if it's your coming off your computer now, not your headphones, but your speaker just changed. So we did not hear the last thing you said. I will let you look at that while we take a quick break. Come back. We'll get specifically into Ace Bailey and Taylor Hendricks and with the perspective of a guy who's 6'11", 220. Very similar to both these guys. He probably has an interesting perspective. Two very different bodies, different stages, different experiences. Thurl Bailey continues with us here on Locked on Jazz. We will see whether Thurl can get his headphones back up and perfect for us. I will remind you that Locked On, I want to thank you guys. Locked On, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country. So thank you very much for getting us there. Pretty cool. Thank you all for that. Big T, let's see if we got you back a little bit.
Can you hear me okay? I'm
just hear you great. Yep,
Perfect.
Good switch. Nice job. Nice adjustment. There you go. They were double teaming. You're getting off the ball. Nice adjustment, Big T. All right, what do you expect out of Ace Bailey this year?
I expect quite a bit. I think he expects quite a bit. That's why I would first start. I think sometimes when you're a rookie, you're a high draft pick. I was only 2 picks below when I came out as a 7th pick. And there are high expectations, not just for yourself, but for the folks who draft you and for the folks who are going to be buying tickets to come watch you. And so I think the one thing that I noticed in Summer League in Salt Lake City with Ace was he wanted to come out and do it right away. He wanted to come out and show why he was a high draft pick and why he was so touted. And I think what he learned was you don't have to do it all right now. Just take your time, figure out your spots and your times, and you don't have to be everything all at once. So I remember that second game he came out. Well, first of all, that first game, I remember they pulled him. Coaches pulled him and had him sit there and watch and observe a little bit. And then that next game he came out, and I thought he was different. He wasn't trying to do it all. He was kind of reading things. So I'm excited because I think he is the type of player that every team is like foaming at the mouth to get. He's got that 6'9", 6'10" body, that length. He's got great athleticism. He can handle the ball. He can shoot off the dribble. Now, he's got some things to learn about this level, like every other rookie. But I think he can get to stardom in a shorter time than a lot of high draft picks. I'm not saying that's going to happen in a year or two.
How come? Why do you say that?
I just think that he's got something. He's got it. I think he's got all the elements to be a great player, and not just on the offensive side. I think a couple of plays I saw that were on the offensive side were offensive rebounds and then picking a good shot to go back up with, or finding a good teammate, rebounding, his instincts. Defensively, I think he's going to be able to guard multiple positions. But I just think that when you've seen a lot of players like you and I have, you can tell. I mean, we had this thing about, and maybe it was hard to see for some, but you and I had this thing about Rudy Gobert being special back in the day. And at that time, he worked his way into being able to do that. And so I think Ace is the kind of player who could really be one of those guys who, after he gets it, he could be a definite all-star and superstar in this league.
No, we need him to be. I mean, that's, to be perfectly frank. Like, that's, you draft
But
a
we
kid
don't need
fifth.
him to be. We don't need him to be that right now.
No.
We need to see signs of it.
Yeah, no, 3-4 years down the road, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, truthfully, by his 4th, 5th year in the league, we need him to be really, really good.
Gotcha.
And if he's not, then the development of the team is just further back. Like, it's like, that's just the reality. Yeah. Like, if you draft a guy in the top 5 and he doesn't pan out, then you have to wait for the next one to come. Like, that's how it works. That is how it works. What do you expect out of Taylor Hendricks as a player? Like, a very difficult concept. So what do you expect out of him?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if I expect this to be a vital year for him, especially after his injury. I barely got injured when I played. I didn't miss a lot of games, especially not to that degree.
Interruption. He actually played 84 games in one season, by the way, everybody.
It's not that he didn't get injured. He actually played more games than there are in a season.
That's not because I wanted to.
Figure it out. It's kind of a trick. You can figure out how he did it. He played 84 games in the 91-92 season. Okay, go ahead, Thurl.
That's not because I wanted to, David. Right. But Taylor's interesting because I think he was coming along. He was coming along to be good at what the Jazz needed him to be good at. Obviously, still some work to do on that shot, especially from deep. But as far as a guy who could be a D and potentially 3 guy, a guy who could, rebound well for you and get out and run, he's obviously gone through some amazing changes with his body trying to get back to where he wants to be. And as I look at players, the few players who have had similar type of setbacks like he has, I think there have been a few who have come back and maybe even been better than before. Kevin Durant, I think, is kind of one of those guys. But look, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm not sure kind of what the gauge is, especially after an injury like that. But I think mentally and I think psychologically, it's going to help him. It's going to help him rise to whatever level that needs to be, just because when something like that happens to you and you know that you've almost lost the game, you're almost out of it, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good thing for him to be back into the fold and being able to figure out where he's going to fit in all this.
I have 2 thoughts on him this year. I want to share them with you. Feel free to critique them. One, I'm not judging anything until after All-Star break. All of my research has shown players coming off significant injuries actually need a break of time. It's not months. It's a break of time to realize, oh, I'm okay. I survived this. I can restart, whether it's an ACL, a broken leg or something. If you go back and look at players, they kind of get back after a break. So I'm not judging till All-Star break. Second thing that I think is most interesting about Taylor, and don't take this wrong, Thurl, you were exceptional. So you could jump me for this. This is one of those comments I'll make on a plane that you'll embarrass me in front of everybody, even though you know it's not exactly what I meant. But in this setting, I think hopefully you'll listen to his route to being an NBA rotation player is not very difficult because of his body. When you're 6'9", 220, and you have a perfect NBA body, you don't actually have to do a lot. You hit a few shots, defend a little. Like, your route is much simpler, and that excites me about him.
Your route is much simpler. Does that mean your role is much simpler?
For Isaiah Collier to be an NBA rotation player, he has to lead, he has to pass, he has to shoot, he has to defend. Like, at 6'3", you've got about 7 different things you're going to have to do to be really, really good rotation player in the NBA. At 6'9", 220, you can probably be an NBA rotation player, a really good one, by being Jaden McDaniels. What does he do? He defends, he runs the floor, and he hits a few corner threes. Like, it's not as many pieces to the puzzle when you're that awesome physically.
Surprisingly, David, I have to agree with you.
I love
it. Especially in his case, right? I mean, and a lot of this is, again, dependent upon what you're asking of Taylor, right? What are his superpowers? What are his strengths? And obviously that physicality is going to be important for him. But the most important thing for him is going to be, how soon, because everything has a shelf life. Like, everything has a time where you're waiting and see if it's going to happen. And it's got to happen this year, next year, because the team's it's always a moving piece, right? You're always trying to find that player who can fit that role. And I'm hoping that it happens before All-Star break, but at the same time, I think he's got a season for the most part to kind of get back to what the expectations may be of him.
I mean, he's played 42 games, like 43
right.
games. Like, right. All right, he's Thurl Bailey. We didn't get the Bailey Bull prediction. We'll do that tomorrow on tomorrow's show. That'll be next. Thurl comes back tomorrow. He will have actually, in 24 hours, as of tomorrow's show, he'll still look like he's in a third grade classroom in a weird thing with where there's stuff above the ceiling because you got it. It's Locked On Jazz. Thanks so much for tuning in. We now say the first ever national 24/7 NBA channel, Locked On NBA on YouTube, plus Locked On NBA every day for you. It's all coming up.